Everyone, Chef Joe Youkhan here with Western Hospitality. Super excited today because I'm going to share one of my childhood favorites, pastelon. So I'm half Puerto Rican on my mom's side, and I grew up eating a ton of Puerto Rican food, and one of my favorite things is this Puerto Rican lasagna. It also can be made into a piñoño, which is a little bit different variation of that, which is a pinwheel. Today we're going to do super rustic comfort food. We're going to build it into layers and make it into this wonderful Puerto Rican lasagna called pastelon. So every Puerto Rican dish there is starts with sofrito. So I'm going to show you my abuela sofrito. I did a little variation of that, and what that basically is a puree of all these aromatic vegetables, and we're going to get right to it. So here in the food processor, which I'm sure my grandmother wished she had back in the day, she literally had to grind this and pound this by hand, but fortunately I have a food processor here. We're going to put in a fair amount of garlic. And if you'd like to see this recipe and all the amounts, please send me a comment below. Love to hear from you and love to share this recipe with you and all the exact preparations. The thing about this recipe is that every family has a different amount, and you can just go crazy with garlic or go crazy with onion, whatever you like to go heavy on. So you can't really do any wrong. You just basically want to have all these elements in here. So I like a lot of garlic, so I'm actually putting in almost a cup of garlic cloves. And then to that, we're also going to add some onion. You can use sweet onion. I'm using red onion because I like the color. And this is just rough chop because the food processor is going to do all the work for us. We're also going to be putting in green onions. We got the white parts and the green parts. Love the flavor of green onions, love the color. Next up, the peppers. So in Puerto Rico, there's some ají dulce, so they have different peppers. Here we're using green bell peppers, red bell peppers. And one variation is I'm using ají amarillo, which this is a Peruvian chili, which basically means yellow chili. Really bright flavor, wonderful citrus notes, a little spicy, but doesn't really knock you out too much. And that's gonna give us some great flavor. So that's my little twist from my abuela's recipe. All these peppers are going in. All right, next up, olive oil. We want a fair amount of olive oil. We're going to use more olive oil when we're cooking it, but we're going to put just enough to get this thing going so we can get a puree out of it. The wonderful thing about sofrito is that you can make it ahead. It gets better as it sits. So once this is pureed up, you can put a layer of olive oil on top in a mason jar, in a sealed container in your fridge. Lasts you up to a week, gets better every day. All right, so next up, we're going to put in cilantro. In Puerto Rico, they use cilantro. They also use something called culantro, which I always just say it's like cilantro on steroids, like cilantro 2.0. Also has a wonderful flavor, but I think here we're just using cilantro and the green onions. We're gonna mimic a really great flavor that my grandmother made back in Puerto Rico. Stems are great here. Just don't use the very bottom part because they get a little bit fibrous, but the tops and some of the stems are wonderful. So we have all this fresh cilantro going in there. And then lastly, we're using two different spices. We're using adobo and we're using sazon. Both of these are quintessential Puerto Rican flavors. Goya makes that product. I love Goya product. And every Puerto Rican household has Goya adobo and Goya sazon guaranteed. Every dish that you've ever eaten. So we're going to put more when we actually season the dish up. But I'm just going to put a little bit in here for some flavor. I'm putting about a teaspoon of the Goya adobo inside my sofrito base. And I'm going to put about a teaspoon of the sazon. And they're really similar. They have like onion powder, garlic powder, coriander, some really great Caribbean seasonings. This one has some annatto as well, so you're going to see that it has some red color, and that gives a lot of great flavor and color to the dishes, like arroz con pollo and pernil and all these great Puerto Rican dishes. You're always going to see that in there. All right, so now we're just going to puree it up. Add a touch more olive oil to really get this pureed, and then about halfway through I'm going to scrape it as well. You can already smell it. It's like once these ingredients come together, it's magical. I don't know what it is, but just this combination of onions and peppers, the cilantro, the olive oil, the seasonings. Like, this smell immediately makes me think Puerto Rican food. Immediately thinks of my childhood. All right, I'm gonna give this a scrape. Oh man, it smells amazing. Like I said, it only gets better as it sits. Some Puerto Rican households and chefs as well will put tomato element in here. Some people put ham or cured meats, like, you know, the ham type meats, to give it like another depth of flavor. I like to just keep it vegetarian like this because I'm gonna add it to meat. And I also know that I'm gonna add tomato element when I make the mix for the pastelon, which is also, that meat mix is called Picadillo. So that's actually what we're going to be braising here with the sofrito in just a moment. I'm going to give it a taste to make sure we're where we want to be. Amazing. A little spice, some sweetness, very herbaceous. Exactly where we want it to be. Like I said, this can sit and be stored for up to a week covered with a little layer of olive oil on top so it doesn't oxidize. And it's amazing. We're going to leave it right there and we're going to continue on to our next step to make our pastelon. Now that the sofrito is done, we're going to move on to making the next layer of our pastelon, which is the Maduros. So before we start braising the picadillo, because I want to use the same pot, we're going to fry off our bananas. So here we have plantains and we have them of different ripeness. You can see that we have some that are just pretty yellow with some black, some that are yellow with a lot of black, and some that are just black. So every recipe would call for a different style of plantain. If you're making tostones, which are like chips, you're going to use a green plantain. If you're going to do like acapuria, or you're going to be making mofongo, you're probably going to be using something that's yellow and getting to be a little bit more ripe. And here we're making maduros, which is when they're really sweet and soft. And this is when they're black, even blacker than this. So we're going to take this and we're going to cut it into slices. And we're going to pan fry it. So then that way we're getting them pre-cooked, ready for the pastelon. So I'll show you how to make a maduro. These are wonderful on their own. You can have them just pan fried. This is not an eating banana. This is a banana where you want to cook it, right? So these are plantains, different than the banana that we're used to. This is something that once you peel it and you get it to where you get to the inside of the fruit, then you're going to want to cook it for sure, 100% all the way through before you eat it. The black ones that are really ripe, they're easy to deal with. They peel really easily. The green ones are the hardest. The skins really stay on there, and I like to blanch those first in some boiling water and put some slits into them, and then after I take them out of boiling water, they're easier to peel and to deal with. And here, when they're this ripe, they're really easy. I'm just going to cut them into nice half-inch slices on the bias. And then we're going to pan fry these at about medium heat until they're just lightly caramelized. And the reason why I'm doing the bananas first before the picadillo is because I want to use that same pan to pick up all those flavors. So I'm going to put some olive oil in the bottom of the pan. You can use vegetable oil. I'm putting about a quarter cup just to make sure that I have the pan covered on the bottom. And since we're going to be cooking these bananas twice, I'm not overly worried about 100% cooking through. What I'm trying to do here is bring out the natural sweetness and the caramelization of the banana by pan frying it in olive oil first. So I can see here that my oil is warm. When the oil kind of shimmers and dances around, you can tell, right, when it starts to separate like that the pan is warm. Also, when you put the food in, if you can see it starting to bubble slightly, then you know it's hot enough to put the food in. So we're going to give that just another second, turn it up for a sec. Whenever you put anything in a hot pan, you want to put it in away from you, especially something like these. These bananas are kind of slippery. You don't want to drop it and have it splash on you. So go very carefully and put away from you, so then that way you don't have any hot oil burns. And we're just going to lay these bananas straight in. I'm going to go to where all the oil is. We're going to let those cook for just a moment. You can see here ahead of time that I made quite a bit of maduros. So we have all these maduros already been pan fried and roasted. So, you know, we have probably about 8 bananas worth, large black bananas worth of the plantains cooked off, nice and soft and caramelized, and these guys are ready to go. So I'm going to show you how we're going to take them to the next level. In order for these to be ready to be as a picadillo, we're going to flatten them out. So that'll be our next step. So let me go ahead and turn these over. And once we got them cooked off to this color, they're gonna be ready to go. So for our next step, we're gonna start getting ready to do the picadillo. So the first thing that's gonna go in here is gonna be our ground beef. I use 80-20 blend, which basically means it's 80% beef, 20% fat of the beef. So that's gonna give us a really great flavor, fat is flavor, and it's gonna keep everything nice and juicy. Once we brown off that beef, we're gonna add a sofrito, and we're gonna keep going with the recipe. So I'm gonna remove the plantains from the pan, and then we'll move on to the picadillo. Now that we have our saucepan nice and hot, we have a nice large heavy duty pot to have all this ground beef browning. We have 4 pounds of ground beef going in. This is gonna feed a family of 6 to 8. We wanna get a nice color on the ground beef. This is gonna continue to simmer and cook with all our ingredients. And it's also gonna bake again in the oven when we put it in to bake with all the elements. So what we're trying to do here is just develop flavor. We want caramelization, we want the ability to season this meat, and then we want to cook it with a sofrito and everything else. So first thing I'm gonna put in here is the meat. And picadillo is one of those things where, you can put this on anything. You can put it on rice, on pasta. You can stuff it into potato or deep fry it. There's so many, you can put them into wontons and deep fry it. It's just a great filler, just a great thing to have around. So, we're making a lot here because we want to make a big pastelon so we have leftovers. But also, frankly, you can just keep some in the fridge and eat it with scrambled eggs. I mean, it's delicious everywhere. All right, now that we have our meat cooking, like I said, we want to season it up. We're going to continue to use our adobo. Once again, we're using the Goya adobo, which is the garlic adobo. We're going to put about half a teaspoon here. Inside the picadillo, there's going to be a lot of salty elements, capers, olives, our seasoned sofrito, and we're also going to re-season it. We're going to be using cheese. So all these different layers have salt. So we don't want to be too aggressive on the seasoning right now because you can always add, but you can't take away. We're going to put sazon as well, about a half a teaspoon. We're going to give this a good stir. There's not a ton of oil in the pan because there's a lot of fat in the meat, so I don't want it to get too greasy, and I know that some of the fat on the beef is going to lend itself to the dish. So as it cooks down, we're going to have more fat, and that's going to give us the additional fat that we need to cook up the sofrito. So also to this picadillo, we're going to add some more spices. Besides the Goya adobo and the Goya sazon, which gives amazing flavor, we're going to add some cumin, paprika, and dry oregano. These are really going to add a lot of depth of flavor to this braised beef portion of this picadillo, which is going to become the pastelon. So first up is cumin. We're going to put about a teaspoon of each one of these. Paprika, and another paprika that you can use could be the sweet paprika, it could be hot paprika, it could be smoked paprika, a combination of all of them. All are amazing. Smoked I love. Today we're just using regular old paprika. And here we have dry oregano. You just want to kind of crush in your hands a little bit, just to kind of release some of those flavors that are trapped in there. You can use fresh oregano as well, but since this is a long cooked dish, a braised dish, it just kind of gets lost in there. So I like dry, and I don't use too much. Dry is really intense. I use about a half a teaspoon. I'm gonna stir all this in and continue to brown the meat. You can do this with ground turkey, you can do this with ground chicken. If you wanted it completely vegetarian, you can even use ground up mushrooms or tofu. Anything that you like can be the filling. What we're really creating here is the flavors of Puerto Rico with the sofrito, the spices, using the Goya spices, and the plantain. So really, if you wanted to make this vegetarian or vegan, or go in a whole different protein direction, even ground pork, feel free to. Beef is just classic. I love beef, but anything like that would work amazingly well for this dish. So now that we have our ground beef seasoned and cooked off, it's time to add the sofrito. So this is where the magic really happens, is when you have all this aromatics going right in there. We're gonna add a majority of what we made here, which we're gonna use a good solid 2 cups worth of sofrito. You're gonna have some extra with the recipe that we have, but like I said, this lasts forever in the fridge and you're gonna want extra. So we're gonna cook this in. Oh, it smells amazing. Right when that sofrito hits and starts to cook into the beef, it really just changes everything. Perfect. So now that we have our sofrito cooking in here, we're gonna start adding all our other elements. So we wanna add a tomato element. I'm gonna add tomatoes in 2 different ways. Tomato paste, which is gonna really give it a wonderful concentrated flavor. A lot of glutamates and umami in tomato paste. We're gonna add just about 2 tablespoons. I love these squeeze tubes because then you don't waste any. You know when you have that little can, there's always like some at the bottom and you never get to it. This is perfect, right? It's just like toothpaste, just keep on running it up. So we got 2 tablespoons of tomato paste that we're gonna cook in there. It's not a lot of tomato paste because we're actually gonna add some tomato puree in there as well, which is gonna give us a lot of body. Just like if you're making like a bolognese or a meat sauce for an Italian dish or Italian lasagna, we're gonna be doing the same here. That's cooking in. Now we're gonna add our tomato puree. So these are just some really great quality tomatoes. I love using San Marzano tomatoes, which are from that region of Italy, just because they have a wonderful sweetness. But you can use any kind of high quality tomatoes that you like. Fresh tomatoes are great too when they're in season, just grate them up. Otherwise, a really good quality canned tomato is wonderful. We're gonna add about 2 cups of tomato puree as well. I don't know about you guys, but my mouth is already watering. Like I'm ready to eat right now. So I'm gonna turn this down just a little bit. I'm gonna let it simmer away. We're gonna add some of our saltier ingredients to this, which really takes this to a whole nother level. It smells wonderful, all our base flavors are there. We're gonna add a touch of white wine, completely optional. You can just completely leave it out. You can use a touch of beer. You can use a little red wine if you want it nice and heavy. I like the crisp acidity of white wine, so we're gonna just put in about 1/2 cup, completely optional. My abuela never put wine in hers, but I like to put wine in mine. Next up, we call acapulco, which is like this mixture of green olives and pimentons, and also we're gonna be using some capers. So that's gonna give it a wonderful flavor, wonderful salinity, but just a whole fruity depth of salinity. So these basically red pepper stuffed olives are going in. And then capers, completely optional, really salty. I like to rinse mine first. They're packed in brine or packed in salt, but either way they're salty. So I'll just give mine a quick rinse. And I would just say, start out with about 1 tablespoon in your total mixture, see how you like it, because you can always add more as you go. But something like this is gonna give you a real punch of flavor, but in a really great way. And all these wonderful, rich, salty ingredients are going to be completely balanced by the sweetness of the wine, the sweetness of the tomato, and then also the Maduros. The sweet plantains are really going to come through sweet. So all of these like super savory flavors are going to just be perfectly balanced. And then we're going to bind it together with cheese. What better way? All right, so this looks absolutely delicious. You could put this on anything and it's going to taste good. I'm gonna give it a quick try. We're gonna let it simmer down so the alcohol cooks off. So the tomato concentrates, all the beef gets nice and tender. And like I said, we're gonna cook this one more time in the oven, but when we do that, it's just literally allowing the cheese to melt because we have our cooked beef filling, our cooked Maduros, we'll have our shredded cheese. So quite literally, we just need the cheese to melt and it'll be ready to go. So I'm gonna turn this to a simmer. I'm gonna give it a taste. I'm gonna see where our seasoning's at. You always wanna taste as you go. You definitely wanna get an olive and a caper in there because that's gonna change how much salt I'm getting. It's too good. When you get a bite of that olive and a bite of that caper, it's like a burst of flavor. It's gonna be totally balanced with the plantain. So we're gonna let that simmer, give it one more quick stir, and I'm gonna show you what we do with the plantains, which is a lot of fun. Now it's time to address the plantain. So the plantain, believe it or not, is going to be like our pasta sheet. So we're going to smash them down, and instead of like a lasagna sheet and beef sauce and cheese, we're going to have a plantain sheet. So we're just going to mush them up. Like I said, this is a real rustic dish, so it doesn't need to be like this perfectly rolled out thing. You could do that. You could put it in between some plastic paper and roll it with a rolling pin. We're literally just gonna smash them down so they're nice and thin. They have a fair amount of oil on the outside since we pan fried them, so I'm not worried about them really sticking to my hand or to this board. And they're about 80% cooked through right now. And when we put them in the oven, they're gonna get completely finished. So we're just gonna smash these guys down while that's simmering away and make it so that we can create a thin layer in between the beef and the cheese. The white wine that we use in the Picadillo is a Sauvignon Blanc. One of my favorite ones is Cloudy Bay from New Zealand. It just has a wonderful acidity. It's just crisp and clean and has a really natural sweetness to it. So that's kind of my go-to whenever I'm making a butter sauce or whenever I'm deglazing something where I want it to be crisp and acidic. I love Sauvignon Blanc for that. And specifically from New Zealand, just seems like the mineral content in the soil out there is amazing. And it just grows amazing grapes and just makes for a great Sauvignon Blanc. So that's my go-to. So once these guys are all smashed down, and you know, in Puerto Rico, when we make tostones, which is the savory version of this plantain, we actually have this super cute little press that looks like a tortilla press. And it's a circle, perfect thickness, perfect diameter. And you smash the bananas down and you pan fry those when you're going for like the crispier ones. And that's pretty cool too. Leave me a comment below. Let me know if you'd like to see me make tostones. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We love that support. And send me any comments. And please like it. If you like what you're seeing today, hit that like button. All right, so we got our first tray of bananas done. And we're gonna go ahead and smash off the rest. All right, we're gonna look back at this Picadillo, make sure that everything's simmering away and looking great. I'm gonna try it one more time to make sure that all the flavors are developing the way I want it. This is gonna be my last time to adjust anything that I want adjusted before it goes into the oven, because once it's baked off, then we're pretty much fully committed there. So if something needs to be adjusted, this is the time to do it. Give this a quick try. Yeah, it's absolutely perfect. I love it. I'm not seasoning the Maduros, if you notice. You know, I talk about a lot, you know, seasoning everything, seasoning in layers. The one thing about these plantains is they almost have like their own inherent flavor, like their own salinity, maybe from where it's grown, but they just are delicious and ready to go on their own. On the sweet ones, on the Maduros. On the green ones, I typically season them pretty aggressively. But since we have so much aggressive flavor here, and these have beautiful flavor on their own, we're just gonna leave these the way they are and build a lasagna. So let me show you how we're gonna do that. And ready to build our layers. So you can use any type of pan that you like. You know, feel free to use a lasagna style pan or any kind of heavy bottom pan that goes directly into the oven. And just like lasagna, we're gonna build this thing into layers. So I like to start off with the sauce layer on the bottom, even when I'm making a standard lasagna. That way I kind of have like a buffer between like the pasta. In this case, it's gonna be the plantains. So we're just gonna put a nice layer on the bottom. And at this point, you could do no wrong, right? It's like all the kids in the pool. And as long as you have as many layers as you like to see and eat, then just go for it. You can make really thin layers and make a lot of layers. Or you can make one big thick layer of meat, one big thick layer of banana. Like I said, this is your pastelon. You can do it the way you like. I like to go 2 layers. I like to have a couple different layers so that with all this love of flavor, my guests are also seeing the love of the layers, right? Anytime you eat something layered like that, I just feel like your guest, your family, the loved ones that you're cooking for can really feel the love, knowing that you put that extra time into creating these layers of flavor for them on your palate and also visually. So we got a layer of meat sauce down. One thing I like to do also is use some egg. Some scrambled egg is gonna help set the beef. It's really gonna have it like just come together really nicely. In a regular lasagna, you probably have like ricotta cheese that has some egg mixed into it, and then when it bakes off, the protein of the eggs kind of set the lasagna. So in lieu of that, that's what we're doing here with the protein of these eggs. And just to give it another layer of flavor and some color, I'm adding a pinch of sazon to my eggs. These are just whole organic eggs that we're gonna scramble up, and then we're gonna add to our meat mixture. So we're gonna beat the sazon into these eggs. And I'm just gonna add a little bit of egg to each layer of my beef, because that's gonna be like my ricotta, if you will, to help set it. Now you can do this at the end. I like to do it on every layer. Add a little bit more beef here. I'm gonna add a layer of cheese. This is just freshly grated mozzarella cheese. One thin layer. And then a layer of bananas. And you already know this is gonna be good. Like at this point, you already know. And everything's cooked, right? So you're ready to go. You can have this just like this, ready to go, in the fridge, ready to bake off. You can prep this a day or 2 ahead. You can cook it and have it sitting in the fridge. So, you know, this is a wonderful do-ahead dish. Can't go wrong. Crowd pleaser for your family, for your friends. And for me, this is when, you know, I want to think of my nostalgia of being in my abuela's kitchen, being in my mom's kitchen. My mom's a wonderful cook as well. So, you know, she knows how to make some great Puerto Rican dishes that she learned from her mom, which is my abuela. So yeah, it was a great childhood to be able to eat all this wonderful food. I gotta tell you, a lot of other kids are eating fast food, and this is what I'm coming home to, so I was pretty lucky. So now we have this beautiful layer of banana, and we're just gonna keep repeating until we run out of space, really. All right, we have another layer of beef, and now we're going to put another layer of egg to set all that. So I always love to start it with the sauce at the base. I love to end with the plantains and the cheese, just to have that crusty layer. The bottom layer with the sauce helps it like not stick to the bottom, but then that top layer, I want that crust, I want that texture. Right, so the banana is caramelizing with all the natural sugars, and then this cheese melting on top is just going to give me that crusty top, just like a lasagna would have. that everyone would really love to enjoy. So that's why I like to finish with the plantains and the cheese. And there you have it. So if you want, you can get really cute with it, and you can take some of the whole olives, kind of letting people know that what's in there. You can kind of like decorate that around. You can do that before or after. I'm just gonna go right in with this the way it is, and have this beautiful baked off pastelone. So we're gonna go into a 350-degree oven for about 40 minutes, literally until the eggs are set, the cheese is melted, and then we're gonna be able to enjoy. Oh, this is heavy. It's gonna be epic. So we've been baking the pastelone off for about 40 minutes at 350 degrees. Let's give it a try. It looks absolutely perfect. It smells epic. All right, let's pull this out. All right, I don't know if there's anything that looks more comforting than this right here. It also weighs, I think, about 35 pounds. So here we have it. We have our Puerto Rican pastelone. It's beautiful, it's caramelized, bubbling. You can really tell that everything is really set here. That egg protein just set in between those layers. We have those wonderful plantains and cheese running throughout. This is gonna be hot for about a day and a half. So you wanna wait a good hour at room temperature before you dig in and enjoy. This only gets better over time. Leftovers next day, you heat it back up, it's gonna be amazing. I have some greens here, I have some cilantro. You can use some micro cilantro like this. Gives a nice little punch of flavor. You can use chopped up cilantro. You don't even have to put anything in here. This is just to give it that one little layer of flavor and also make it look extra pretty. So here we go. We have our micro cilantro. We have our beautiful pastelone. And that's it, we're ready. Here we are. We have the most perfect pastelone. Looks amazing. Can't wait to dig into it. Please like this. Subscribe to our channel. If you'd like to see more recipes like this, please comment below. If you get a chance to try it, or if you tried something similar to this, would love to hear from you and see how you enjoy it as well. So time to enjoy. So we're gonna cut right into this. You can use a knife, you can use a pie cutter, you can cut it into wedges, you can cut it into squares, whatever shape you like. Just because I cooked this into a round dish, I feel like I need to cut it into like a pie shape. Like I said, this is a lasagna. This is classic comfort food. You could do no wrong. The first one's always the hardest one to take out, right? Oh yeah, beautiful. Look at that. Let's give it a try. It's gonna be hot, so be careful. Oh man. Right away, I get all those flavors of the sofrito, all those are aromatics, and then boom, the sweetness of the Maduro, the plantain, and the texture of the plantain is just so amazing. There's just nothing like it. And then that wonderful crust of the cheese on top, that herbaceous hit of cilantro right at the end. This is a must try. Definitely give this one a try one day and give me a comment, let me know what you think. I think it's amazing. Please enjoy.